Lochran. That is Adam Shar. He's coming to you live from San Francisco for this 7-game basketball slate. I heard you got up real early today, huh?
Yeah, man, I've been up since 4. I went to bed by like 10. I'm just still completely on East Coast time.
Oh, I bet. Well, it's good to have you with me, man. You having a good time out there?
Yeah, having fun. Pretty relaxing. Just being out here by myself for a week, like on the water and playing DFS and then going to bars.
Good stuff. Well, let's jump into it then. We've got 7 games to talk about in an hour to do so. 7:30 p.m. lock. Let's see here. Just to make sure any new, because we still have a decent amount of pending news, Adam, and that's kind of the thing. Like we just got a bunch of Sixers news for tomorrow, but that does none of us any good. We're getting a ton of Tuesday news over the past hour. Nothing relevant for today. So just out of the gate, we're still waiting on Whiteside. Collins is doubtful. We're still waiting on Dragic. Anthony Davis, that's kind of a big one. DeAndre Jordan's another one. I'm assuming he sits. Any lean you have specifically on any of these guys?
I'm assuming Jordan sits just because it makes sense for him to. I have Davis in right now. He went through shoot around and Okafor's doubtful. So my guess is just that he plays those like 22 minutes that Okafor would have played. I have Whiteside and Dragic out. That's the one that I'm least confident on though. Like I have them out because they haven't played and they didn't play last game, but that I think could really go either way.
I mean, if Davis does sit, he did go through shoot around, but I don't even know what that means at this point with the state of their organization. But if he's out and Okafor, who's doubtful, sits, how many minutes do you give Diallo here? I'd have trouble giving him too many more than like 25 or 26, just with the way Alvin Gentry's utilized him. What do you have?
Yeah, I was going to say like 26 seems about right to me. I have him at 22 as is, but I just think that what we've seen Gentry do is basically, Diallo can get a few extra minutes there, but you would see, Stanley Johnson or Miller or Moore like pick up additional minutes.
Yeah, and you get Randall playing a bunch at the 5 as expected, and then Kenrich could just play a bunch at the 4 too.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways that could go down. But anyway, we will get started here and keep you abreast of any news as it happens. We're glad to have you with us back from the weekend, so let's dive into it. Brooklyn and Dallas. We have an interesting one here because, well, I'll tell you this much. When I first ran crunches at the beginning of the day, I was surprised that I didn't have as much Doncic. But I made a few adjustments only because I feel like 91 on DraftKings is kind of crazy for a guy that's been this good, that has 35% usage, like 35% assist rate, 14% rebound rate, 1.4 fantasy points per minute. All the numbers are in his favor. All the rates look great. Brooklyn 5-point favorites, 226.5 total. It's also a pace up spot for Dallas. Let's actually start with the road team and get into the Mavericks here first.
Yeah, I mean, Luka's one of my favorite plays on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Getting a lot of him right now. Having trouble getting my fantasy cruncher page to load, but in my initial crunch on DraftKings, I think he was like my second highest player, around like 50% on FanDuel.
What do you have him projected at? Just what do you have him
50.
50? Okay, yeah. I made some adjustments just from a minute standpoint. I got him up to like 49.5, which changed things a lot. I think I just had him off, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think going from memory, I was getting around 35% on FanDuel, even at his $9,800 price. So really like Luka here, like the pace up spot, just a more appealing matchup than he had on Saturday against Memphis. And we know that he does basically everything when he's out there. The price tag's dropped a bit for whatever reason. So I'm going right back to playing a ton of Luka like I do almost every day.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, it's tough to get away from him here, both sites, but like 91, somebody asked me a question today on Twitter. They said, I read your deep dive, which you can find on awesome.com, and they said it seemed like you were, really not high on a lot of these point guards. Are you paying down? And the one thing like on DraftKings is, and he said you're not high. I was surprised at how low you seem to be on Trae Young. Well, it's not as much that as it is Luka's point guard eligible here. He's $200 less than Trae Young. I mean, I know Trae Young got ejected yesterday, but this is their 3rd game in 4 days. They played a quad overtime game on Friday. Like I just like Luka more at where he's point guard eligible. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. Trey, like it's kind of a tangent, but like Trey Young is just on DraftKings, especially is kind of just weird because his price has gone up while Luca's come down, and then you have a bunch of underpriced guys with point guard eligibility like Dwayne Wade and uh, Bledsoe and these other guys. So yeah, it's not about not liking Trey; it's that I can't pay more money for him than for Luca.
Right. That's all I'm at, or that's where I'm at as well. But on the rest of Dallas, this is where I'm curious to get your take because, like with Jalen Brunson, I know there's some interest here. I've found myself really just, and a lot of this is contingent upon what news breaks throughout the day, but I'm really not looking to punt some of these cheap shooting guard, small forward options unless I absolutely have to. And Jalen Brunson falls in that same category for me. Look, I get it. He's cheap. He's playing pretty solid minutes. He's been starting. You could do worse, but the guy's floor is just unbelievably low, and I don't buy into him producing another 40 fantasy point game. So all I'm saying here, Adam, is I hope that enough opens up to where I don't have to worry about playing Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. In a vacuum, Brunson is perfectly fine as a point per dollar play. The reason that I think I'm not getting tons of him is because you have value. I have value that I like at the center position. You have if Whiteside is out, you get still like underpriced Adebayo and Olynyk as well, and they're just higher upside guys, and you're not going to pay down at every position. So while I think Brunson is fine from a roster construction standpoint, I'm just not really getting there all that much. And then you also have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in probably the most appealing game on the slate, who is playing very similar minutes to Brunson now. So at the same price point. So it just makes it tough to get to him with any, real sort of frequency.
Anybody else for Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, I love Dwight Powell, one of my highest owned guys on the slate.
Me too.
On either site. He's power forward eligible on FanDuel, which is really, really nice. On DraftKings, he's a center, but he's 5,200. So I don't know about you. I think I saw you mention it in chat. I think we're on the same page, but it's really tough for me to pay up above like Powell at center today on DraftKings because there's just so much upside in some of these cheap guys. It's kind of a weird slate in that regard, but I love the spot for Powell. He played 32 minutes last game, but also didn't play the final 8 minutes of the game in a blowout. Played 37 minutes in each of the 2 games before that. So yeah, really, really like Dwight Powell.
So do I. And the eligibility on FanDuel definitely doesn't hurt. Power forward eligibility on FanDuel, 6,300 really isn't that bad. And look, the reason for that being Dwight Powell, if he's going to play these heavy minutes, I don't really care if he comes up in price a bit. He's a 1 fantasy point per minute guy. You even look since he's been getting this big run over these 4 games, these numbers are not going to wow you, but 17% usage, 17.5% assists, 12.5% rebounding. He's doing a little bit of everything. I think he continues to give you right around the fantasy point per minute. And this is a Brooklyn front court that defensively has allowed really big games to centers. So Luka and Powell, as you mentioned, on the same page. These are the 2 guys from Dallas that it's real hard to get away from.
Yep, 2 of my highest owned guys on FanDuel and on DraftKings right now.
Yep. On the other side, it's gotten a little messier now that Spencer Dinwiddie's back. I mean, this team a month ago, 3 weeks ago, was just the complete opposite of healthy. Now you've got Dinwiddie healthy, Crabbe healthy, Karis LeVert healthy. I mean, maybe Trevion Graham doesn't play, but that's not the biggest deal in the world. What do you make of Russell and the rest of these guards here?
Very site dependent for me. On FanDuel, the price tags just aren't as appealing, and I'm really not getting to much of anything from the Brooklyn side. On DraftKings, I think you can make a stronger argument for them. You have D'Angelo Russell at $8,000, and that is getting down to a point now where it's starting to take into account that Dinwiddie is back and LeVert is back. I don't buy that Russell is going to play 28 minutes a game going forward. They've been in a couple of blowouts. I think you still get 31, 32 minutes from him, maybe not the 36 plus that we were seeing not too long ago, but obviously has some upside. The problem is just with the way this slate breaks down, there's a lot of, I don't even know if it's a lot, but there are some really strong plays that make it tough to prioritize Russell. So like in my initial crunch on DraftKings, I got somewhere around 15% Russell. I got around 10% Dinwiddie at 5K. I'm fine with both of those numbers. On FanDuel, I don't even have that though.
How much Russell on DraftKings did you say?
Like 14%.
Okay. Like with Dinwiddie, I find kind of interesting because he's so cheap that we've seen Atkinson do this so many times in the past. If Dinwiddie comes out of the gate hot off the bench and is knocking everything down, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get to 28, 30 minutes. And at 5K, if that's the case, I like him quite a bit. Russell's not overpriced. It's not crazy. We've seen his price come down, so it's not that I hate it, but I'm having a much tougher time now. And the one thing that matters to me, you and I talked about this all season long. When Dinwiddie's healthy, it's so much easier for Russell to lose minutes if he's not playing well. And I don't want to say I'm factoring that into the projections, but I'm not giving him 35, 36 minutes. Like you said, maybe 30, 31 I feel more comfortable with now that Dinwiddie's healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And I just went back and pulled up my FanDuel crunch because I knew I wasn't really high on Brooklyn there, but the highest owned guy from Brooklyn that I have on FanDuel right now is Carroll at about 10% as, just a $4,300 cheap small forward option.
Trevion Graham has just been ruled out for whatever that's worth. Do you have any interest in these wings here? Karis LeVert has done nothing but make our lives miserable. Not just after the injury, but I don't know if I've ever gotten LeVert right. I know you feel the exact same way. There's just too many bodies on this team. There's so many minutes. There's too many bodies and not enough minutes. And not to mention, if I could lock him in for like even 28, 30 minutes, but I can't. He might play 25. He might play 26. Maybe you have a different opinion than I do, but Brooklyn is a team, other than sprinkling in the Dinwiddies and such, maybe a little Jared Allen is not really one of my top options here as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, there's just so many bodies, and like the only guy that I have projected for for more than 28 minutes today from Brooklyn is D'Angelo Russell.
Right.
So it's just really tough to single anyone out. I think that if you're a max entry player, they're a little bit more appealing because you do have really cheap price tags on guys like DeMarre Carroll and Joe Harris is cheap, and having the ability to kind of sprinkle those guys throughout lineups because there's a good chance that at least one of them has a good game. It's just a matter of there's no way to actually single out which one that's going to be. So if you're single entering, it's easier to just go to a different team than to worry about the Nets.
All right, so that's exactly what we'll do, Adam. Let's talk Miami. And by the way, last thing I'll say here, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but when it comes to Jared Allen, I know he's been cheap. Something I've kind of been saying for a little while now. He has been cheap, yes, but he should be cheap because it's just volatility is not a bad thing, but I don't know, with the wealth of center value today, and that could even change more depending on if Davis or Whiteside is out. Even at his price point, Allen still isn't that appealing.
Yeah, I agree. My initial crunch on DraftKings, which is the only site that I would really play him on, I got like 3%. So it's just I can't get there on the slate where I think there's there are value plays that can score basically as many points as Allen for like 2/3 of the price.
So here we go. We've got amazing timing here. This is great. The basketball gods are shining down upon us with smiles today. Hassan Whiteside is ruled in. Goran Dragic is ruled out as we move to the second and final 7:30 p.m. game between the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks. You've got Miami 10-point favorites, Adam, 221.5 total at home against Atlanta. The Hawks actually haven't been playing terrible basketball lately, thanks to Trae Young, thanks to some couple monster Alex Len games and a few other role players that are playing decent enough to keep them competitive. Hell, they beat Minnesota. They lost in quadruple overtime to Chicago. That get 168 to 161. Then they beat Chicago in Chicago. A little payback there. But let's start with Miami. No Dragic. Comes back, has a couple horrible games, and then has two really nice games, efficient games, got to the line at a high clip, and then strains his calf. Misses a game. Now he misses his second. Whiteside misses a handful of games. He's back. So once again, we've got this carousel of guys coming in and coming out and replacement players and this and that. And now we've got it again with no Dragic, Whiteside in, and pretty much everybody else healthy outside of, a few players that we don't really need to. I guess everyone is healthy outside of Goran Dragic.
Yeah, so Whiteside back obviously takes two of the better value plays off, or 1.5 of the better value plays off the board. You have Bam
I would have liked
Adebayo.
Olynyk a lot, actually. I would have liked Olynyk a lot if Whiteside was out, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, yeah, and I still think Olynyk is okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I took a few minutes away from him, and I also expect him to be less productive because now he's not going to get backup center minutes like he was. Bam, obviously, with his price tag rising, is essentially unplayable here. Whiteside himself, I think, is a good play. The price tag on him is cheap. He's at 7,500 on FanDuel. He's 68 on DraftKings. The problem, of course, is again, there's just good cheap centers on this slate. So I would say Whiteside is probably my favorite mid-range play, but I just still don't really find myself getting into the mid-range all that often.
A couple of things I found fascinating. Kelly Olynyk this season, with Whiteside off the court, is averaging over a fantasy point per minute. With Whiteside on the court, it's 0.81 fantasy points per minute. So not even just the backup center minutes, but obviously if he's getting those backup center minutes, it's with Whiteside off. He's playing closer to the basket for sure. But playing along Whiteside opposed to along Bam has not been as productive for Olynyk either. I'm curious, do you weight this at all? Like, do you put any stock into this? Because I'm actually just noticing it now. I was curious to see what Whiteside had done in games against Atlanta this year. He's played them 3 times. He's averaging 20 minutes per game. Now, it's worth looking to see if that was like one game where he only played a couple minutes and got hurt, because I don't remember. But also to see if this is just something that Spoelstra has done. The thing, though, is, and this is where it gets interesting, and I'm going to tell you right now, he played 21 minutes, 25 minutes, and 16 minutes. We saw we saw Len and Dedmon start next to each other last game against Robin Lopez and then a rangy power forward. Kind of the similar thing today. You have a pretty traditional big center in Whiteside and then a rangy tall power forward in Kelly Olynyk, similar to Markkanen in terms of style of play. I wouldn't be surprised if Lloyd Pierce goes with the same starting lineup tonight, and that could, in fact, help Hassan Whiteside stay on the court if, Len and Dedmon don't get into early foul trouble.
Yeah, right there with you. I mean, Atlanta's playing big, and I think that the minutes for Whiteside are always a little concerning because
always, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? But as far as matchup goes, it should be perfectly fine.
All right, so what else here? I mean, you have your Richardsons, your Winslows. I'll tell you what, for me, I was hoping that the ownership would be lower than it was projected to be, but I mean, Dwayne Wade, just from a per minute standpoint, from an upside perspective, and from his price point, $5K on DraftKings, like, I find Wade to be a perfectly reasonable play here at $5K flat against the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Wade. One of my higher owned guys on DraftKings in particular. I think the $6,200 price tag on FanDuel is fine, but it's not as appealing as the $5K flat on DraftKings. I haven't projected for 26 minutes, but it's just such an appealing spot. He could get more than 26 if Atlanta stays in this game. And Dragic being out certainly doesn't hurt Wade. So he's been playing really well. He's averaging over a fantasy point per minute since the start of January. And it's obviously a really good matchup. So, yeah, I'm right there with you on Wade.
He's the second best per minute producer on this team behind Hassan Whiteside. I mean, he gets it done, no question. And I have no problem rostering him. His minutes, could he play 24? Yeah. Could he play 28? Sure. We've seen him play upwards of 30 when he's hot. But that's that's a risk I'm willing to run. I'd rather play him over Dion Waiters, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I have him ahead of Waiters as well.
Yeah, they're the same price, basically. Talk to me about the Atlanta Hawks, Adam. No Taurean Prince. John Collins is doubtful to play. But we've also, it may not seem like much, but Mason Plumlee still is not returning yet, so they don't have the depth there. And you don't have Amari Spellman, who, playing in Collins' absence, hurt his ankle, and now he will be out for at least a month. So they are pretty thin if you're talking about Dedmon, Len, and then Poitras, right? Like maybe Vince Carter plays a few minutes at the 4. They don't have that many bodies to eat up minutes in the front court. Break it down for us.
Yeah, and I like that they're going against a bigger Miami front court, like you said. Whiteside and Olynyk is similar to Lopez and Markkanen. If you weren't afraid of Lauri Markkanen beating you from three, you're not going to be afraid of Kelly Olynyk beating you from three as far as putting the Len and Dedmon lineups out there. So I think that you once again have Len as one of the better values on the slate just because of his price point. Whiteside being in scares me a little bit for Len just because he can potentially just get wrecked by Whiteside. But the price tag hasn't really moved. Like, he's 3,700 on FanDuel, he's 4K on DraftKings, and this is a guy who, it's not like he just gives you some good point per dollar value. He is absolutely capable of breaking the slate and scoring 10 times his salary. So I'm willing to take whatever risks that there are here. So obviously like Len a lot. I think that Dedmon probably plays around 30 minutes as well, obviously playing backup center and then getting some time at the four. His price tags come up enough to where I get much less of him than I do Len, especially on FanDuel where Dedmon is also a center and you can't play him at power forward. So Len's really the guy to go to here from Miami for me. From Atlanta, sorry. I don't think I don't expect him to be low owned or anything. I assume he'll be one of the most popular plays on the slate, but it's really hard for me not to get a lot of him.
Yeah, me too. Unless he's in foul trouble, I would expect him to play at least like 27, 26 minutes.
Yep.
And you're still getting him at a price that is certainly down. 4K on DraftKings, really, really, really inexpensive for his upside. 37 on FanDuel. By the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Whiteside and Len have a legitimate beef. Like,
yeah, I thought I remembered that.
They got in a pretty serious fight, and then they played again, and I don't remember what it was. Maybe one of our premium subs in Slack chat can find it, because they had a few instances where they got into some shit, like 2015, 2016. There were a few times. So this should be fun so long as they don't both result in ejections in the first or second quarter. That would really suck.
Yeah, that wouldn't be great.
It wouldn't. Before we move on, is there anything? I mean, we both obviously like Len. Do you have any interest in the Bembrys or the Bazemores? I saw a tweet today that someone said our boy Josh Engelman said he's going to have loads of Bazemore today, and this guy apparently does not like Kent Bazemore very much, judging by the.
Me and that guy have something in common then.
Yeah, right. Judging by the sentiment from his tweet. Anything other than the front court, though?
On FanDuel, Bazemore's 4,400.
Yeah, and I think that's what Josh was referencing, by the way.
Yeah, I assume that's what Josh was referring to. I have Bazemore projected about as low as I can. I projected his rates with Trae Young, so it has him at like 18.5% usage, which is on the low end of what I would expect. I have him at like 28 minutes, which he could play more. It's not a good matchup, but at 4,400, he still gets into like a quarter of my lineups right now. On DraftKings, it's very different. At 4,900, in the same ballpark as guys like, obviously across positions, but guys like Wade and, Pat Beverly, and just a ton of guys in that 5K price range.
Yeah, no question. I'm not finding myself getting there much on DraftKings specifically. And then with Bembry, the same thing I'll say about him every time. Like with Bembry, if he plays 28 minutes, you're really happy. I know he played 34 the one game, but last game, I'm pretty sure Bembry played only like 24. And it's not like they had a whole lot of bodies. Yeah, he played less than 24 minutes. Lloyd Pierce is not just going to run him out there for huge minutes every single game. That's not the case. And Taurean Prince didn't play last game either. So let's move on here, Adam. We'll start. We'll get to. We got one 8:30 game, two 9 p.m. games, and then a 10 o'clock game and a 10:30. Everything's spread out nicely tonight. We've got the Spurs at home against the Denver Nuggets. Spurs 1-point favorites at home. A surprise. Did this surprise you at all to see a 230 total on this game?
Yeah,
that's really high. It seems really high, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Spurs cannot play defense, but
no. But even just in terms of like pace, I would have thought
exactly. That's why it's surprising to me.
Right. I know Spurs, they're playing at a slightly more elevated pace, but it's still quite a bit higher than I would have anticipated. You've got these teams since the start of January. The Denver Nuggets are playing at the 11th slowest pace. The Spurs playing at, where are they? I'm sure they're still down there pretty far. They're playing at the 21st fastest pace. So 230. We'll see. Vegas is sharper than we are. What do you have here starting with the Spurs?
Yeah, I mean, for the Spurs, I like LaMarcus Aldridge. I think that the price tag is still too low at 77 on DraftKings. He's 86 on FanDuel, but pricing in general on FanDuel is tighter. So there is still some value there. In my initial crunch on DraftKings, I got to about 17%. I was in the same ballpark on FanDuel as well, I believe. He's playing big minutes again. He is getting around 36 minutes in competitive games. He is playing a bit better than he was when he was dealing with the illness or whatever it was when he was questionable for a couple of games. So I think that he's fine. I like Aldridge. I don't like DeRozan as much. I'm getting some Derek White, but again, it's just like a saturated price range at point guard today. So Aldridge and then Jakob Poeltl, especially on DraftKings, are the two spots that I'm getting to the most.
The turtle. Yep. He salvaged last game with 5 stocks. That was helpful. But aside from that, the 26 minutes was nice. I actually had mentioned to you before that game that I had worried a bit about his minutes because 34 minutes against that jumbo Detroit front court is one thing, but then playing against Steven Adams, but their power forward rotation, especially with George out, was a lot smaller. Whether it be Morris or Jeremy Grant, but he still got 26 minutes, which if that's the case, 26 minutes is not terrible. I'm assuming though you still have a lot more love for Len than Poeltl at the same price.
Yeah, I like Len more. I haven't looked at the ownership projections, but I assume everyone likes Len more. So the pivot becomes, appealing, but in a vacuum, Alex Len.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for the latest update. Okay. Beautiful. 2 minutes ago, they were just updated. He was 0.1% earlier in the day because of John Collins, of course. That changed. He's 27% on DraftKings. Poeltl is 12. So still, Poeltl's even actually higher. I thought he'd be even lower than that. Poeltl on FanDuel, 5%. Alex Len on FanDuel is unsurprisingly right now projected to have the highest ownership, 47%. That is a spot where I would not hate to come underweight on just because as good as he's $200 above the minimum. I get it. And I guess Rudy Gobert is super expensive on FanDuel opposed to where he's dirt cheap on DraftKings. And most of the good centers on FanDuel, actually, a lot of them are at power forward. So it does kind of make sense the more I look at it, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, my FanDuel crunch is looking at like my top ranked FanDuel lineups. It's like Alex Len, JaVale McGee, Alex Len, JaVale McGee, Poeltl, McGee, Len,
Yep.
Len. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just a spot where I'm paying down on FanDuel.
Yeah. Yeah. The more I look at it, the less interest I'd have in getting away from that. If some of these other players that are at power forward were center eligible instead, it'd be a little different. I'd feel a little better, but I don't. I just don't. I'm with you too. Like on DeRozan, let me ask you this. Let's do this because I think this is interesting. You have DeRozan on DraftKings at 7,700. Then you have Devin Booker, 7,800. You have Donovan Mitchell at 7,300. Russell at 8K. Drew Holiday at 76. I won't go down the Buddy Hield, but let's just talk about that group, okay? Mitchell, Russell, DeRozan, Booker, and Holiday. Where would you have DeRozan in terms of ranking amongst them? Because I'd have him, I think, probably third or fourth behind Booker and Mitchell. What about you?
Yeah, it's the same for me. I have Mitchell. Looking at my DraftKings crunch, I have Mitchell the most by far, then Russell, then Booker. Who'd you say? Booker, DeRozan, and
Holiday, I don't really have any of.
Holiday.
But
Yeah, I have Booker.
ahead.
I have Booker slightly ahead of DeRozan, Holiday, but not by much. Like there's a huge gap between Mitchell and Russell, and then another huge gap between Russell and the rest on DraftKings for me.
All right. Let's talk about the Denver Nuggets. You did mention Derek White already, so I don't think we need to go much deeper on that. The Nuggets 1 point road dogs. I mean, this game is virtually a pick 'em. The 230 total again is strange to me, but what are you going to do? We've got Jamal Murray and Will Barton, who's actually coming off a few solid games. Hopefully, you got him on the good ones before he falls back through the floor. Trey Lyles remains out. And then just, the usual suspects. Paul Millsap's price is is up quite a bit. His minutes have come up as well. But let's start, of course, with Nikola Jokic. He, I swear, if he didn't get in foul trouble last game, he could have hit 90, 100 fantasy points at the rate he was going. It was insane.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, well, we have to because this is what we do. I'm sorry, man, but we got to talk about it. Every time he came in and played like 3 minutes before getting in foul trouble again, he had another 15, 20 fantasy. It was just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I knew he was in foul trouble, and I didn't I hadn't realized how many minutes he played in the first half, but I knew he was in foul trouble, and I was like, okay, whatever. He got 18 points in the first half. I figured he had played, like 10, 11 minutes or something. I looked, he had 6 first half minutes and 18 fantasy points.
Yep, I know, just outrageous, absolutely outrageous.
Triple double in 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, oh dude, it was insane. I mean, he played. He had he played 5 minutes in the first quarter. I think he had 4 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal. Just the numbers were insane. And then he comes back for another minute, and he has a steal, I think. And I don't know, the numbers. Had he played 35 minutes, and this game was close the whole game, he would have been easily over 70, probably upwards of 80. I mean, the sky is the limit there. Do you have interest in him today, though, against Denver at 10-3 on DraftKings and 11-2 on FanDuel?
I just can't really get to him from a roster construction standpoint.
Me neither.
He obviously has a monster ceiling, but the price tag on FanDuel is really expensive. On DraftKings, it's more favorable, but you also have to consider that Rudy Gobert's price tag is more favorable in addition to, the cheap guys. Like Jokic is basically twice as expensive as Dwight Powell. He's like 3 times or 2.5 times as expensive as Alex Len. You really need a lot to go right. Like even if Jokic goes for 60, obviously there's value in 60 points regardless of the price tag. But if he goes for 60, you still need Len to go for like less than 30 to be like on the right side of that. So it just makes it really, really difficult. And then that's also without factoring in the opportunity cost of if you do roster Jokic, that's one spot that you have to like use on value that doesn't have the upside that these cheap centers do. So it just gets really difficult for me to get there as much as I like him.
Me too. Let's see, did an initial crunch earlier today, sometime in the afternoon. And I had Whiteside projected in. So I think I got about, I don't think I got any Jokic. I mean, I got 2% Jokic.
I got 1%.
Yeah, 2% Jokic. You got 1. It's hard to get to. God, even with Whiteside in, we'll see, with no Bam and no and Olynyk being a lot less appealing, I still don't expect to get all that much, and for one of those reasons we'll get into shortly. But do you want to touch on anyone else for this Denver squad?
I'm really just not getting to anything here. With this team being healthier and the price tags coming up, and this being a slate where there are some, just really appealing plays, I don't really have much of anything.
Me neither. All right, let's talk about Utah and New Orleans. The Utah Jazz, one of the biggest favorites on this slate, 10-point favorites at home against the Pelicans. A 230 total on this one as well, which isn't as surprising. But, Rudy Gobert, we got to talk about this. Josh and I discussed this. He joined me on the early bird this morning for the first time. It was a good experience. And we were looking at this, just one of the strangest games you'll see from Rudy Gobert. He was his plus minus against Milwaukee. What do you think it was?
Minus 31.
Yeah, minus 36.
I know Josh told me this morning.
Oh, okay. In 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I mean, yeah. That's insane. And, props to Quinn Snyder for having the largest balls ever to be like, you know what? We're playing Milwaukee. Favors, you're going to play heavy minutes at center. Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year candidate this year. You're going to watch from the bench, and we're going to win. Like, that was really impressive, man. And I don't really care if Gobert was bad on Saturday because he's $7,900. You're talking about a guy that produces north of 1.3 fantasy points per minute this season. And as you've always said, Quinn Snyder's not exactly prone to resting his starters at home in blowouts. 7,900 is a pretty cheap price tag on a guy like Rudy Gobert.
Yes, it is. He in my initial crunch was my second highest owned center on DraftKings. Actually, despite the fact that there's so much good value at the
Yeah.
position,
He was
he was
my
like the
highest for
one.
what it's worth. He was my highest on the
Yeah, I
first
had
one.
him second behind Powell. He was yeah, he's just a great play to me. I mean, it's a really nice spot against New Orleans. Davis, assuming Davis plays and Okafor's out, it's less appealing than if Okafor were starting, but it's still not a bad spot. You're still not going to get more than 21 or 22 minutes of Anthony Davis. So I just think there's a lot working in Gobert's favor there, and then the price tag's just it's just way too cheap on DraftKings.
It really is. Just some housekeeping here, by the way. John Collins is out. Everyone else outside of Torian Prince is active for Atlanta. So John Collins with that illness remains sidelined tonight. Talk to me about Mitchell. You said you have a ton of interest in Donovan Mitchell tonight, huh?
Yeah, he came in around 22% for me on DraftKings. Came in lower at 13% on FanDuel. But with Neto still out, you're getting backup point guard minutes for Donovan Mitchell. His minutes are more or less staggered with Ricky Rubio. So you get a bump in assist percentage for him during those minutes. We know that he's still going to go out there and look to score. He has a tough individual matchup having to deal with Drew Holiday, but it's just still not an overall really scary defense for the Pels. I know they've been playing reasonably well over their last few games defensively, but overall, not a great defense. So I think that there's just more working in Mitchell's favor than working against him, and I like him quite a bit.
All right. Sounds good to me. I think you like him a little more than I do, but that doesn't mean I don't like Donovan Mitchell. He's still in a strong spot against the defense that's all but given up at this point. I mean, they're still the Pelicans are still playing. They actually didn't they just beat Denver in Denver? So I guess I should probably retract that statement. But still not a team that you worry about when it defensively. I mean, they've really struggled all season long. Drew Holiday, even his defense has not looked nearly as good individually. Anything else for Utah stand out to you? Derek Favors. Maybe I won't speak for you, but paying $7K for him on draft or on FanDuel is definitely a bit harder for me than $5,800 on DraftKings. He has been playing big minutes. I don't know if 32 minutes again. That was with Rudy Gobert having a terrible game and Favors having a huge game. But what do you have Favors at in terms of minutes today?
I have him at 28.
Me too.
We got the 32 last game. We got 30 against Denver. We had 32 a few games ago against Oklahoma City. I think he could certainly come in under it, but I do think it's a good matchup for him. He's been playing really well, since the start of January, 1.16 fantasy points per minute, 1.23 since the middle of January. So he's been playing really well. I like the matchup. The $5,800 price tag, like you said on DraftKings especially, is appealing, especially because we just lost Bam and, basically have to downgrade Olynyk, two other guys in that price range. I already had like 17% favors on that initial crunch. I imagine that will go up a bit now with those guys no longer really being guys that I'm playing a lot of. I got to about 10% on FanDuel, even at the 7K price tag. I like the spot for him. I like how well he's been playing, and I expect that his ownership will remain low because of the price tag rising so quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. What did you say on FanDuel, by the way? Sorry.
I had 10% in my initial.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
My guess is that goes up because of Olynyk and Adebayo, though. Like the power forward position is just kind of bad on
it changed a lot. I mean, Dwight Powell being eligible there is helpful, but if he wasn't, that would make things even more disastrous. On the other side of this game, the New Orleans Pelicans they have not been easy to gauge lately. I mean, at least now Davis is getting his 21 minutes, and he may or may not play. If he doesn't play and Okafor, who's doubtful to play, doesn't play, I would have Chick Diallo as one of my top overall value plays, and I have no problem with that. I think Kenrich Williams would get a lot of minutes as well. Let's just go ahead and break this situation down. We're making pretty good time here. So what do we do with this front court, Adam? What are you doing with it?
Basically nothing. So I'm assuming Anthony Davis is in since he went through shoot around.
Yeah.
I have him at 22 minutes or whatever. Not playing him. Randall in a vacuum is okay, but I'm still not really getting there when you consider all the other options on the slate. Maybe I get a little bit more now without Bam and Olynyk, but still don't imagine I get a ton. I'm not really getting to Drew. There's a lot of guards that I like, more than him. If Davis sits, then like we mentioned before, I would give Diallo 26, 27 minutes, which would make him a perfectly reasonable play. I think I would still get more, like Alex Len, but I'd get some Diallo. I think that beyond that, you would probably get, maybe like 32 minutes for Williams, but then you'd get the rest of the minutes like sprinkled out to some combination of Etuan Moore, Darius Miller, Stanley Johnson, where it's just really not useful.
Right, not at all. For me, it would be like if Davis sits and like you said as well, he did participate in shoot around. I think he plays, but with Davis, I want to cover all of our bases, right? Because it's very possible that he just doesn't. And if he doesn't, Diallo to me, when given the opportunity lately, has been very, very productive. And you don't need a huge amount of minutes from him. I mean, if you recently 32 DraftKings points, 22 minutes, 36 and 21, 13 and 15, 20 and 17, 36 and 19, 43 and 26. Point being that if he gets around 25 minutes, even 24 minutes, Diallo at that price point, even against Utah, is still someone that I'd be projecting to pay off a $4,000 price point. But I'd need Davis to be out.
If I give him 26 minutes, I get like a 26-point projection.
Right. And that should give you a decent amount of him, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out that he's had some favorable matchups too. I mean, Indiana was a tough one, but the Lakers, Philadelphia, the Lakers, the Suns, and then, Denver.
Yep. Yeah, no question. Which is why I wouldn't be putting them up around 35, but again, if Davis and Okafor sit, Diallo is going to be in play for me. Anybody else for New Orleans here, whether it be Holiday or Elf? I can't get to really anyone here right now.
Yeah, it's easily one of the least appealing teams on the slate for me.
All right, sounds about right to me. We'll stay tuned for any more information when it comes to the Davis news, and the Live Before Lock crew will hopefully get that news before lock. They're going to take you up till 7:30 once we're done here. That game starts at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so 3 games before it. Phoenix and Milwaukee, the second 9 p.m. game, Adam. The Suns 13-point dogs at home, 233.5 total. The Suns just beat LeBron James and the Lakers. It's really laughable, I gotta say. I mean, that was their second win in 19 games. It's just terrible. I haven't heard much from Ring Rim lately, but I feel for you, bro. I do. I still like you, man. We feel for you. I do, at least. But man,
I'm a Wizards fan. I don't feel bad at all.
Yeah, the truth is, neither do I. I'm trying to be be a decent guy here. Let's talk about the Suns, though. They face a Milwaukee team. We really liked Buddy Hield the other day against Milwaukee because while they are a very good defense, there are some aspects from a fantasy standpoint that benefit shooters and allowing the most 3-point attempts, ranking 19th in 3-point efficiency allowed. That's good. Playing at a top 5 pace since the start of January. That's good. Devin Booker, to me, has not been outstanding lately. I get it. Tyler Johnson's in the starting lineup. I don't think that makes a huge difference. Kelly Oubre in the starting lineup. Booker still has blow-up potential to me. So at 7,800, this is still a guy that I have quite a bit of interest in. I'm assuming more than you do just by your rankings that you gave earlier. But yeah, I think Booker is priced reasonably enough here. Granted, there's always the concern of a blowout. It's a 13-point spread, but he's still a very good player. He's still producing a 30+% usage rate since the trade deadline, and we know what he can do when he gets hot early. Where do you stand on this Sun squad?
I like the spot for Booker. The reason, or one of the reasons that I didn't get him in a lot of lineups was I actually had a rule set. I'm not sure if I'll keep it or not, but I had a rule set that if I got Booker, I needed one of the main Milwaukee guys. Just because while I think this game, I like this game from a game to game stack, because whenever you get, Josh and I talked about it this morning, I like targeting games that have a big spread where the road team is the big favorite. And especially when, for Milwaukee, it's a nice matchup because Phoenix is bad. And for Phoenix, it's a pace-up spot, and there are some ways to exploit Milwaukee. So like if this game stays close, you could really easily get a monster game from a lot of pieces here. So I like Booker in that context, but as a standalone play, I don't like him quite as much because if Booker goes out there and has, one of these games where he drops 40 real points and he keeps Phoenix in this to the end, you have to assume that pieces on Milwaukee are also going off at their price tags. So Booker by himself just doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
All right, fair enough. Anything else? Look, I get it. I still don't mind him by himself. That's what I'm saying. I think I like him more than you do. I also am aware of the risk. Booker has not been great recently, but I still expect the usage to be out there, the assist opportunities for him to lead the team there, and to see decent. Like if this game is competitive, I'd expect a very big game from Booker. It's just hard to say if it will be. What about the rest of the Suns team? Anything stand out to you?
Getting around like 10% Kelly Oubre on DraftKings. I think the price tag's a little low. It's not a priority play, but I don't have a problem with Oubre.
All right. Yeah, that's really the only other player that I have any interest in, and it's not going to be a ton of him. The other side, I was kind of excited to discuss this with you because Giannis. Let's start this off with this. I'm going to ask you a question. How many minutes right now do you have Giannis projected for?
32.
Okay, so do I. Now, I wasn't sure if you were going to say 34 or whatnot, but I get the impression that Mike Budenholzer is going to continue to play him, of course, but I feel like you're going to see a lot more 30, 32-minute games from Giannis going forward. And what makes it kind of interesting is that Chris Middleton over his last 3 games has played 40% of his minutes without Giannis. If you were to take out the game where Giannis played only 24 minutes and they went to overtime, he's still playing almost a third of his minutes without Giannis on the floor over his last 2. The fewer minutes that Giannis plays, the more it actually helps Middleton, even if it's only a few additional minutes that he's playing with Giannis off the floor. If you think Giannis is going to play less than the normal 34, 35, maybe 31, 32, Middleton will be on the court for all of those minutes. He is he has a very efficient player with Giannis off the floor. I actually, you're talking about Booker and running someone back with it. I don't mind Chris Middleton at all tonight. I can't imagine I'm going to end up on with an abundance of Middleton, but I do think the fewer minutes Giannis plays, the more it helps Chris Middleton. And Bledsoe's off the injury report as well. He's been playing very well too. So talk to me about the Bucks and where you stand on them tonight.
Yeah, I think Middleton's fine. Bledsoe's the one. I like Bledsoe a little bit more than Middleton.
Yeah.
Outside of that stretch of a few games where he just really sucked, he's been playing really well over the last month and a half. Very favorable matchup going against Phoenix. There's certainly a narrative there as well if you want to factor that in. I don't, and I like him regardless. But
he really wanted out of Phoenix, though. That's for sure.
I said to Josh today, I was like, if I don't factor in narratives, but if I had to start guessing at which ones are real and which players,
this will be at the top of the list.
This one would be toward the top of the list.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. There's no question that he was sending those cryptic tweets and everything and saying that it didn't have anything to do with Phoenix. Yeah.
Did you see that he officially signed his contract extension in Phoenix?
Is that right? I didn't.
Yeah, there's a picture of him signing it.
Oh, that's pretty great.
Just, sitting outside, I'm guessing at a hotel or something.
That's pretty hilarious. I did not see that. Sorry, I interrupted you. What else do you have on this team, if anything?
Bledsoe's the guy that I'm getting the most on FanDuel. Giannis, actually, I got as my second highest owned small forward behind LeBron. So if you're single entering a large field tournament or something like that, I don't think that pivoting from LeBron to Giannis is crazy. I like LeBron more than Giannis, but I'm also playing a lot more than one lineup. The upside's clearly there for Giannis. It's just a minutes thing.
Okay. But you definitely agree that you don't have to agree. You have him at 32. I mean, we both do not expect him to play, 35, 30. Even if this game's close, I think Budenholzer probably still gives him around 32 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best guess that I can make. it's also a road 3-4 at Phoenix. It just
Yeah,
doesn't feel like a spot where he plays 37 minutes.
exactly. And that's also something that I'm not super excited about. Any interest in Brook Lopez?
I have him projected as a good play. It's just that I can't really get to him over like Powell and Len and Pirtle and McGee and other guys. Maybe I get some more now that I don't have Bam or Olynyk, but it's not
Right.
a priority for me.
By the way, I forgot to mention earlier with Dallas, Dirk Nowitzki's playing like 23 minutes in the starting lineup
Yeah,
per game recently. I just throwing
yeah.
it out
I
there.
forgot to mention it too.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine value play.
Per-
Like he's still 3,200 on DraftKings.
I was going to say only on DraftKings. Look, are you expecting him to be the difference maker in a tournament winning lineup? No. But if he gives you 25 at 3,200, you're not exactly upset about it either. And
Right.
it seems like Carlisle's giving him he's given him 22, 23 minutes a night since he entered the starting lineup. So it's there. And I just wanted to point that out before we forgot because I already forgot for almost an hour. All right, 2 to go here, Adam. Let's talk about Sacramento and New York. We got the Kings, 11-point favorites, another 230 total. Against a bad Knicks team. Buddy Hield in a pretty interesting spot. I was upset we couldn't do the show together on the first night Bagley was out because I knew you'd have the exact same opinion because I saw this everywhere that people say, oh, yeah, Giles. I mean, Giles was fine. I actually didn't hate him because he was so cheap. I just didn't expect him to get any additional run because he's played 32 minutes next to Cauley Stein all season long. There were so many people. You saw it. I know you did.
Yeah, no, it was annoying because he was 3,100 on DraftKings, so he was a good play just with his 18-minute projection or whatever. But then he's 30% owned because people thought he was going to play like monster minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how? Look, what you're getting here is that Harrison Barnes now plays exclusively at the 4. Bogdanovich gets a bunch of run at the 3. And then Giles backs up Willie Cauley-Stein. I mean,
Right.
That's what you got. So break it down for me. What do we have here with Sacramento against the bad Kings team?
Two of my
Knicks
favorite
team,
plays.
Sorry.
Yeah, next team. Two of my favorite plays in Buddy Hield and Bogdanovich. We got the last 2 games for Bogdanovich. We have 43 and 36 minutes. He sucked last game, but the minutes were there. He
shot 15 times. It was just 3 for 15.
Yeah.
He just shot really poorly.
Right. He's close to a fantasy point per minute player. It's obviously a good matchup against the Knicks. He's in that same price range where Olynyk and Adebayo are. So now there's even more exposure to go to Bogdanovich. So I really like him a lot. Buddy Hield in a really favorable spot as well. I got him right around 25% on my initial crunch on DraftKings. So I expect to have a lot of him. Behind them, though, it really drops off for me. De'Aaron Fox is fine, but again, there's just some cheaper guards that I like. Cauley Stein, I'm not getting to at center. Barnes is whatever. The priorities for me are really Bogdanovich and Hield.
Me too. Me too. There's not much else there. Bogdanovich and Hield, though, I like a lot. I really do like Buddy Hield at 7K is a really strong option. 7.6 on FanDuel as well. Cauley Stein, it's not terrible. I think you may have just mentioned this. I was reading something in chat, but the fact that we lost a little bit of center value makes him a little bit more appealing, but I'm just still not getting there. Let me ask you before we move on here, any interest in Barnes? If you mentioned it and I forgot, I just know that small forward's weak on FanDuel. If I play him, I'm cringing and clicking because just as a per minute guy, you basically need 38 minutes from Barnes to feel decent about it.
Yeah, I mean, I got to like 10% on FanDuel.
Okay.
It's like any Harrison Barnes I get, I'm fine with because it's the Knicks and the minutes are there.
Right.
But it's still Harrison Barnes.
Exactly. On the other side of this one, I don't think we're going to spend much time here, so I have a good amount of time to discuss this final game. I'll just give you my quick take on the Knicks, and I'll let you give me yours. If Jordan is out, I still have tournament interest in Mitchell Robinson because the Kings are the worst rebounding team in terms of opponent rebounds. They've also been blocked at the 9th highest clip in the league. Mitchell Robinson, if he gets upwards of 28, 30 minutes, can still pay off that $6,400 price point on DraftKings, and I would expect him to be very low owned. Floor is yours on the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Mitchell Robinson quite a bit. The problem is just roster construction. So any Mitchell Robinson I get, I'm happy with. It's a really, really good matchup for him.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes down to, like on DraftKings, you have Gobert in that mid range, so it's tough. On FanDuel, it's more appealing because the center pricing is tighter. I think the $4,900 price tag for Moutier on DraftKings is nice. He played more minutes alongside Dennis Smith Jr. last game than he had been. I have Smith at 29. I have Moutier at 28 minutes. That puts both of them in play, but at 4,900, it actually makes Moutier pretty appealing. And the only other thing I guess to mention is, who do you think starts at the 4 for the Knicks?
I don't know.
Because
I don't know.
like Cornette subbed in at the end of the first half for Thomas, started the second half, played like 16 minutes. Cornette's 3,200 and will have 0 ownership, so that's kind of appealing. Obviously you'll have to do some swapping if he doesn't start, but
all right, let's get to this
Yeah.
last one here because it's important. Lakers and Clippers, 234 total. Lakers 3.5-point favorites at home. I think if they lose this game, you might see LeBron James minutes cut back significantly. But tonight, I'd still expect him and Ingram to play big minutes. I think Rondo gets back up to like 34, and I'm going to have quite a bit of him. Go ahead, your take on the Lakers.
Yeah, lots of good plays here. LeBron, one of my favorite plays on the slate, just because he's a small forward and because he should play huge minutes and it's a favorable game, all that. So, obviously LeBron, Rondo, I'm with you. I haven't projected for like 33 minutes or 32 minutes, sorry. But that's still enough to get me, plenty of Rondo. JaVale McGee, I've mentioned a couple times during the show, I think is really interesting because of his price point, because of how good he is on a per minute basis, and because of how good this matchup is.
Started the second half of last game too.
Yeah. He started the second half over Reggie Bullock last game. I don't know if that'll be the case, but he's so cheap that if I project him for 20 minutes, I still get a bunch. If he starts, I think he plays more than that. If he doesn't start, he probably plays a little less. But Tyson Chandler also questionable. I could really easily see McGee at least matching up with the Zubats minutes. And if he gets 18 to 20, I think he's a good value play, good pivot to Alex Len. Clearly has a monster ceiling.
Totally agree. And maybe we'll get that lineup early. I think Ingram's fine. DraftKings 6,600. He's playing 38 minutes per game since the deadline, so that's good. LeBron's my favorite high-priced play. I'm assuming yours as well. And then on the other side, and Rondo we talked about. So that's pretty straightforward there. Again, you can hit us up on Twitter or in Slack if you have any questions, you think we missed anything. You can also get 50% off, half off your first month at awesemo.com by simply using the promo code DEEPERDIVE when you sign up. A boatload of content behind the paywall that we'd love you to be able to get for 50% off. And when you sign up using Deeper Dive as the promo code, hit us up in Slack chat. Let us know you're here, and we'll welcome you with open arms. Also, before we head out, hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It helps us greatly. And subscribe and hit the notification bell as well. We appreciate you guys. All right, Montrezl Harrell. I like Trez quite a bit here, and I think you get pretty good run from him. It's a pace-up spot that should do him really solid. And then, Lou Williams and Gilgeous-Alexander and such, we're short on time, so that's where I'm at. I like Harrell the most. Where are you at on the Clippers?
Yeah, I like Harrell too. Williams is my favorite play, and then Gallinari, then Harrell. But I like all three of those guys. I think Gilgeous-Alexander is a good value option, playing more minutes recently. Any Pat Beverly I get, I'm happy with. But Williams and Gilgeous-Alexander are probably my two highest owned guys from the Clips.
How many minutes do you have for Harrell?
29.
29, so do I. Yeah, 29 minutes at Harrell. I'm going to get quite a bit of them. Anyway, thanks as always for watching. Stick around. Live Before Lock coming up next. We will be back with you tomorrow right here on the Deeper Dive presented by awesemo.com.